Hey, welcome to part one of my message for this week. Part one is something that I'm going to call the 10,000. This sermon that I'm going to be speaking on today, I call it prosperity and problems. Because a lot of the times we find that we can be called by God and we can be living out our lives in a prosperous manner, but then still find problems. So this week, in part three of our sermon series, In the Field, when we're looking at Haggai 2 verse 19, if you guys can remember back to weeks previous, this week we are looking at fig trees. And we're looking specifically at the prosperity and the problems that fig trees represent. This is part one of the message. I hope that you stick around for the other parts, and I hope that you enjoy the sermon series and the message today as well. And I'll see you soon. Bye. Hey, welcome. I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into Haggai 2 verse 19 and give you guys a reminder of what that says and then a little bit about what we're going to be looking at this week. So, Haggai 2 verse 19 says, "Is there yet any seed left in the barn? Until now, the vine and the fig tree, the pomegranate and the olive tree have not borne fruit. From this day on, I will bless you." So this week, we're looking at the third part in this, which is the fig trees. So I'm going to start off in the beginning. And with a little bit, I'm going to flip to Genesis 3, verse 7. And that's the first time that fig trees are mentioned in the Bible. But as you guys are flipping there, I'm going to give a little bit of context. Fig trees, if you guys can remember back to last week with grapes, the grapes represented the covenant and the promise that God had for Israel. So Israel, if you don't know, the Israelites came from a man by the name of Jacob, who God renamed to Israel after he had his encounter with God. God renamed him to Israel and said that your sons, and he had 12 sons, he said that your sons will be blessed through you and will be blessed because of you. So, with him, Israel bore 12 sons, and those 12 sons went and became prosperous. They went and settled in land, and so then 10 of them became the Israel that we know of today, and then 2 of them moved and then established a place called Judah, and now this was broken up due to a little bit of strife and struggle between the 2 groups, but God said that he had blessing over all of his children. So even though God came down and spoke to the Israelites directly, he wasn't going to forget the people in Judah either. So these people of Judah, they were still part of the Israelites when the Babylonians came in. So the Babylonians came in and took over the land, of Judah. And that land, they took the native people, they took 10,000 of them. They took 10,000. The Babylonians took 10,000 people, and they held them captive and brought them back into Babylonia. So that left behind, now these 10,000 people that they took were the best and the brightest out of everybody. So the less fortunate as far as academic standards and financially and things of that manner were left behind. So in this time, the city of Jerusalem had a lot of struggles. We can see that after God has delivered these 10,000 back, which is something I'll talk about in a little bit, but after God has delivered these people back, that's where you get some of the books in the Bible like Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is a strong character who came back to Jerusalem and helped build the wall around Jerusalem, which had been gone for over 100 years, and he built it back up in a matter of just over 50 days under his leadership. So these people, the best and brightest that were sent to Babylonia, we see that there was a lot of struggle with what was left behind there. So that brings me to Genesis 3, verse 7. So I'm just going to read it, and then I'll provide a little bit of context behind it. It says, that was chapter 2. Almost read the wrong one. Chapter 3, verse 7 says, "Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves." Now this is talking about Adam and Eve here, of course, after Adam and Eve have been deceived by the snake. And the snake has convinced them to take from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they have eaten from it. So now that they see that they are naked, and now they see sin, and evil has been set into the earth because these people were deceived by by the devil at the hands of God. Now they're falling underneath God's punishment because of that. So we see here that they took the fig leaves. This is the first time that figs were mentioned in the Bible. And they took the fig leaves and they clothed themselves in them. So when I read this, it got me thinking about what fig leaves represent. So not only does it represent the land of Judah, right? These people who were sent out, these 10,000, and all the people who were left behind. And not only does it represent them, but it also represents the things in our life that we know that we try to cover up, right? Because Adam and Eve knew that they were naked, so therefore they had to cover it up. And I'm asking this morning, what do you know is there? What do you know that without it you would be naked, so you need to cover it up? You need to take something and cover it up, but you know that God has a bigger plan for what that thing is. And I would just like to tell you this morning that whatever you're using to cover yourself up, God didn't intend it that way. God didn't want you to have to cover that thing up. And with God, God will be able to restore yourself in that area of your life back to what it used to be, and God will be able to deliver you from this place. God will take the things that were taken from you, right? With this land of Judah, God looked over these 10,000 that were taken by the Babylonians, and he watched and guided over them and comforted them and kept them safe. But however, you could be feeling like you're the people stuck back in Jerusalem with your walls being broken down and people coming in and taking over your land, and hardly anybody actually being able to live in Jerusalem because the protection was gone, the security was gone, and you might be feeling like that. But I want to let you know that there is a group of 10,000 on their way coming back. God has put them in a certain place because somebody took them from you. But God, what other people intended to hurt you, God says, no, that 10,000 that they took, I will keep them until the right time so I can send them back and build back up your walls. God has a Nehemiah coming your way where he can build back your walls. And I want you to just realize that the way that you feel with you having to cover yourselves with these fig leaves is not the way that God meant for it to be. And whether or not it's your fault, you realize it, so you're having to cover it up. But God wants to bring it back. God wants to bring those 10,000 back, whatever that 10,000 is for you. Maybe it's another job. Maybe you're going through a season in your life right now where you find yourself without a job. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe you've come out of a bad relationship, or you've been without a relationship for a long time. God is sending the 10,000. God is sending. Now, I'm not talking about 10,000 women. I'm talking about his promise. I'm not talking about necessarily God will send 10,000 women your way, because there's an importance in only having one. However, God is sending that promise, and what that 10,000 represents is his promise and his guidance and his comfort and his always being there for us. And God is sending that your way. All you have to do is accept it with open arms when it comes. That's all you have to do. Because God has watched over what was taken from you, and he will give it back to you when you need it most. But God is there for you, and God is looking out for you. And it's important to keep that in mind.